Welcome and thanks for joining me for part 2 of this special episode. My guests are people who've overcome disabilities and found unexpected blessings. During our last episode, we met Chip and Donna Hammond, the parents of Becca, who's 9 years old, but has the cognitive abilities of a 1-year-old. We also met John Seybold, a man diagnosed with muscular dystrophy later in life, but has used his love of painting to overcome some of the challenges he faces. And finally, we met Aaron Welty, a Capitol Hill staffer with cerebral palsy, who doesn't let his physical struggles get in the way of his work. These remarkable stories continue today as we meet an amazing woman who hasn't let confinement to a wheelchair keep her from realizing her dream of becoming a dancer. Stay with us. Mary Verdi Fletcher has been living with spina bifida all of her life. Spina bifida is a condition that forms in the womb and results in a separation in the spinal cord. Mary's separation is very low in her spine and was one of the worst her doctors had seen at the time. When younger, she was able to walk with braces and crutches, but ultimately the doctors decided she was too active and determined she'd need to use a wheelchair. However, Mary never let her condition interfere with her dream of dancing.
You know, when you're born with a disability, you don't know anything else. It's a little different than somebody that's had a spinal cord injury and they were not disabled before and then became disabled and had to learn to live their life differently. I never knew anything else except being disabled. So my mother used to use a phrase. She would say, "Tell people I'm not handicapped, I'm Mary." So I've always functioned in the way that I have a very strong personality and am very determined, and I think that my disability helped me become those things, because when it's not easy to achieve something, you work real hard to do so. My mother was a professional dancer and my father was a musician, so I feel that the arts are an avocation that chooses you. You don't choose it. So even though there weren't opportunities for children with disabilities, primarily physical disabilities, to participate in dance, I always wanted to be a dancer to follow in my mother's footsteps. So I think she fostered that from a very early age. And so it was always part of my life's goal and my dream to dance.
Mary, what was your motivation behind starting Dancing Wheels?
Interesting. I started Dancing Wheels very innocently. I entered a dance competition way back when they first had the disco days, and my non-disabled friend and I just signed up for this Dance Fever competition, and we were chosen as alternates to go to California to be on the big television show, and it was covered by a lot of media that night. And it was other people's desires to see Dancing Wheels that really encouraged me to form it as a group and to travel the globe with it. It's the first physically integrated dance company in America that's comprised of wheelchair dancers and non-disabled stand-up dancers, we call them. And we tour the world, actually, and we have a school that invites children and adults with and without disabilities to learn movement and dance and learn the idea of inclusion. And choreographers gravitate to it because it's of such interest to take a form of dance such as this and use their own creative potentials to make something new, so it's really fostered a lot of interest.
Mary, how do you feel knowing that you've given an opportunity to people to dance that otherwise would have never dreamed they could have done it?
I feel that I've given them a door that opens for possibilities beyond just the dance. They become different people. They see their strengths, their abilities. They become self-confident. Whether they're disabled or not, it doesn't matter. You see them grow. And I find that the arts are a gift. And I'll say, remember that you're not just dancing, you're giving a gift. And you're giving something that will be long remembered beyond your initial performance. So always do that to the greatest capacity that you have. And you can walk away and say, this I have done. And it's rewarding. And it's an experience that will always stay within their lives and the lives of others.
When we return, we'll hear how audiences respond to Mary's unique dancing.
Look around you. We're surrounded by people who courageously face difficult obstacles life has thrown in their paths. Tune in each week to meet people who show there are positive, godly solutions to tough, critical situations. This Emmy Award-winning show tackles challenging life issues such as abortion, stem cell research, and adoption, and shows every human life is valuable and precious. Join us for inspiring stories of people facing life head on.
A performance by the Dancing Wheels Company is unlike anything most audiences have seen, and the reactions they get are resoundingly positive. When Mary dances, she's freed from the stereotypes society may place on her because she's in a wheelchair. Mary, what has been some of the reaction of people who have seen your performances?
I think the initial reaction is pretty much that it's different than what they thought it was going to be. If they've never seen integrated dance, it's a difficult concept to comprehend. And I always have it view it as compared to skating as well, because it has a lot of grace and speed just by the nature of the wheels, but also with the feet too. So it's this odd combination that becomes a beautiful pairing of movement. So people are generally astounded by what they see, and most of them say that the wheelchair disappears within the performance, which is a great compliment. They're not seeing the disability anymore, they're seeing the dancer.
In what ways did you find to overcome your physical limitations while you're dancing?
I've always said that the stage is a place where there is no barriers. The disability disappears both internally and externally when you perform, and you can take on different characters or be somebody else or be yourself. But to me, it's one of the most freeing experiences that I can ever compare it to. And on the stage, you forget about everything. And so it's, a energy and a place that just allows you to be a free, it's your spirit taking over your body, basically. And so I just love it, and it's just not comparable to any form of exhilaration that you can think of.
Like Mary, painter John Seybold also found a way to transcend his disability through an artistic medium. John wasn't diagnosed with muscular dystrophy until he was 55 years old. As his muscles slowly degenerated, he's found a cathartic outlet in painting. John can't paint for long periods of time because of his weak arms, and he has to paint with the canvas laying down. But when he paints, he becomes a different person, one free of a disability. What do you love most about painting?
I love, especially with oils, I love the way the colors go together, how they blend, and then if you really look closely, you can see patterns out of that blending. And that's so unique to me. I am fascinated with colors. At the New York's World Fair in 1965, they had waterfalls, and then behind the waterfalls, they had different colors that would come on. I'd stand there for hours and watch those colors.
Is there any aspect of pain that helps your physical disability?
Yeah, it makes me come alive, and that's important. Sometimes I get mad because I get a little tired, but no, when I paint, the muscular dystrophy's gone. It's not there.
When she isn't dancing, Mary's a strong advocate for the rights of people with disabilities. This is a passion shared by Congressional Legislative Assistant Aaron Welty. Aaron was born with cerebral palsy, but it hasn't stopped him from pursuing work on Capitol Hill. Aaron's dad built him a vehicle called the Phoenix that enables him to safely and easily get around D.C. Aaron discovered the Phoenix has helped change society's perceptions of people with disabilities and raised awareness on related issues.
I look at it as this this symbol of love between a dad and his son, because who else has a dad that's going to go to that length to not only build something for his son, but build something that he can get around in effectively in the nation's capital, and hopefully spark other people to start thinking about transportation options for folks like myself that will help, kind of revolutionize their lives and give them better chances at mobility like I happen to have because of the device.
I think society's barriers and stereotypic views of disability are the hardest challenges. And I think it's those stereotypic views that really alter what people with disabilities are as people. They're not viewed as artists necessarily, or doctors or lawyers, or, it's been many, many years of struggling to be equal. It's different to change people's mindsets that have been ingrained in their minds generation after generation.
I hope that a story like mine is something that people can look at and say, look at where he came from and the things that he went through. And he's now doing things that most people might not be able to do themselves. So if I can make it, who's to make a judgment that says, John Doe, who's been prenatally diagnosed with a disability, can't.
In a moment, we'll hear our guest's thoughts on disabilities diagnosed in the womb and the role abortion can play.
Whether you're a student needing answers, a parent needing help, or a concerned citizen wanting to make a difference, Life Issues Institute has the resources you need to put your values into action. Life Issues Institute is an international educational organization committed to protecting innocent human life. Life Issues Institute knows what it takes. That's why millions throughout the world turn here for help. Life Issues Institute has authored more pro-life publications than any other entity in the world, and its materials are printed in over 30 languages. Radio broadcasts, newsletters, and a website filled to the brim with the answers you're looking for are just a click away. Go to facinglife.tv and click on the link to Life Issues Institute to find out more about how you can change the heart of a nation.
Becca Hammond is the 9-year-old daughter of Chip and Donna Hammond. When she was young, Becca suffered from seizures and was eventually diagnosed with cortical dysplasia, which means the entire right side of her brain doesn't function. Becca doesn't communicate very well or easily respond to directions. But that hasn't kept her from making a profound impact on her parents, siblings, and anyone with whom she makes contact. The Hammonds have received pity from strangers unfamiliar with their situation, but Chip and Donna know, regardless of the obstacles they face, they would never have made the decision to keep Becca from being born.
And I think that this is indicative of how much Roe versus Wade has affected our culture, because there are people, even who share our values, who have said things like, it's too bad you didn't know about this before she was born. Not really, I think, even thinking the implications of her. Why is that a question? And so I'll just ask them that. Well, what difference do you think that would make? And the people that we've interacted with, when they think about it, they say, I guess it wouldn't have.
What we have run into, though, is when stem cell research was becoming so attracting so much interest. And it was fetal stem cells that everyone wanted to do research with and to use. And a lot of parents of children like Rebecca have pursued that. And there was, I remember you writing a letter to the editor of World Magazine at one point about it, being asked, well, maybe this is something that would help Rebecca. And we said, we have no interest in trying to promote our child's health at the expense of the life of another child.
I'm such a proponent of giving every opportunity of life possible. If my mother had made a decision or was guided to not give birth to me, there would not be any dancing wheels, for one. And I think that, you never know what a person can contribute to the world. You might be giving birth to a president or, a person that's going to save the world, and you just don't know that, and just because they have a disability doesn't mean that they're going to be less than. It might be a little bit more work initially, but, the outcomes could be great too.
Erin, what would you say to those who would feel that perhaps it would have been better had you not been born or not survived?
I would say to them, with all due respect, you are absolutely and utterly wrong.
What advice do you have for people who would feel pity for you or others with disabilities?
Get to know us first. You get to know us and you begin to realize that, no, it's not necessarily what I thought, and there's a good chance that some of these folks are probably capable of things even I couldn't do.
What advice would you have for a couple who have just received an alarming prenatal diagnosis?
Nobody really knows the future, right? And things that may seem dire, it may not be. I can remember when you were pregnant with Rebecca saying one that, as long as it's a healthy baby, because she was kind of a surprise, as long as it's a healthy baby, that'll be fine. And thinking that I wouldn't be able to deal with a child with cognitive disabilities. So I may have been pretty panicked had I thought that. It's just been kind of over time, a little more we've found out. You adapt to it. So I've just heard too many stories where there have been dire prenatal diagnoses that have been wrong, and but even if we had known about Rebecca, and I probably would have told you, I don't think I would be able to handle that. Somehow you do, and it's not like life is bad or anything.
No, no.
Do you think your disability has detracted from your life in any way?
Oh, I think my disability enhanced my life, to tell you the truth. And the reason that I know that is that with all my family members, my cousins and my brother and all that, none of them followed their true love as far as like dancing. I think that sometimes when you have a disability, things are a little harder to obtain, so you work that much harder. And I think that you also learn to be a very creative person, to do things differently and alternately from what maybe society expects you to do.
Coming up, we'll hear from our guests on what determines a person's worth.
Look around you. Everyday heroes abound in our country. We're surrounded by people who courageously face difficult obstacles life has thrown in their paths. Tune in each week to meet people who show there are positive, godly solutions to tough, critical situations. We'll tackle challenging life issues such as abortion, stem cell research, adoption, and abstinence, and show that every human life is valuable and precious. Join us for inspiring stories of people facing life head-on.
As you've heard today, there are many in society who, given the chance, would choose to end the life of an unborn child who may be facing a physical or mental disability. These well-intended but misguided individuals believe these lives wouldn't hold much worth. But our guests today have proven them wrong. A person's worth can't be defined by what they can or cannot do. John, what do you say to those people who think individuals with a disability don't have a value to society?
I would say too, they're very short-sighted, because even though they may need a wheelchair or they may need some kind of assistance, whatever it is, they can contribute. Again, it's the mind. If the mind's working, it'll contribute. If they're interested, it'll contribute.
Would you agree with the statement that a person's worth isn't based on what they can accomplish or can't accomplish?
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that has kind of come back to me time and time again when I think about my situation and the situation of others with disabilities that I've known and grown up around is that we matter for no other reason than the individual who created us, God himself says we do, because he took the time. And if the creator of the universe is willing to take the time, then that alone gives a person worth